Live from Pawtucket. It's a mad show. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Stephen Buckner, joined tonight by my lovely co-host, PJ Pat Tierney. We hope you all had a good holiday and have a happy new year coming up. And this is the last episode of our year, and it's 2525, if mankind is still alive. Do you remember that song?
I do not.
That's an old song from like the 60s. I can't even remember the exact lyrics, but I've been waiting for us to have 2525 so I could use that. Anyway, our last show was our Christmas episode, so we didn't really get into any of the new releases coming out in the holiday season. So we got plenty of movies to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the reboot of Anaconda, the new movie featuring, oh my God, I just blanked on his name, Kate Hudson and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And if we have time, we'll get to Zootopia 2, which we didn't talk about on the previous show, although I had seen it at that time. But the first movie I want to talk about is a very smaller movie, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of, which I think is a real shame because it's one of the better movies I've seen this year. And that's Ella McKay, which is the newest movie from James L. Brooks. Now, James L. Brooks is a well-known director, although I don't think he's well-known to a lot of younger people, because I was reading that it's been 15 years since his actual last movie that he directed. But younger people probably would recognize his name because he's one of the creators and producers of The Simpsons.
Okay.
So that's what he's been best known for the last 30 years.
35 years.
Yes. But he, he's had a long history before The Simpsons and even after it. But he was a writer on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and I think he was one of the creators of Taxi. His most famous movie is Terms of Endearment from the 80s, which was very popular. He also did that movie with Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets. That was also a very popular movie. So he's a well-respected, well-liked director. So this is his first movie that he's written and directed in, like I said, 15 years. And what drew me to go see it, not that I knew that much about what it was about, but they actually filmed this movie in Providence this past year, or maybe it was last year. But I can remember, them saying, "Oh, you can see Woody Harrelson and not Janet Leigh. What's her name?
No.
Jamie Lee Curtis."
Yeah.
Her mother was Janet Leigh. But there were sightings of them around the state because they were here filming that movie. And so I went to go see it mainly out of curiosity to see a movie that was filmed in Rhode Island, to see if I could spot, recognize places. Of course, the most obvious site used, which is you see frequently within the movie, is the State House, which, it's hard not to recognize the State House. But the premise of the movie is that the main character, Ella McKay, who's played by Emma Mackey, she is a very young lieutenant governor who very quickly sort of gets thrown into the fire because the governor of the state, they never actually say what state it is, but the governor of the state in which she's lieutenant governor is going to be appointed to the presidential cabinet. So
That sounds familiar.
Yes. So she is going to become the governor. And at the same time that she's having to deal with becoming governor, she's got all these family issues going on, issues with her estranged father, her brother who's sort of almost a shut-in, and then, issues with her husband. So she's got all this that she's trying to deal with as she's dealing with becoming the governor of the state. So it's kind of a dramatic comedy, and I thought it worked really well. I mean, I've seen some critics saying that it's sort of scattershot, but I didn't really feel that. I felt it was really good. It was, funny at times, dramatic at others, but I thought it all worked really well. I thought the supporting cast of Jamie Lee Curtis and Woody Harrelson and Albert Brooks plays the governor. They were all excellent. But I thought mainly Emma Mackey, who plays Ella McKay. The names are so similar, it's confusing. I thought in a movie that if it had been seen more, I think this would have been like a star-making role for her. And unfortunately, the movie is not doing well. I mean, I did see some advertisement for it when it was coming out, but it's a smaller movie.
Yeah.
You expect it to do smaller business, but the way that the movies have been lately, I think it's underperforming even for a small movie,
That's sad.
It is sad. It's just funny because this is a good movie. I think Emma Mackey may have actually looked at this as being her big moment to break out. I don't know if you know who she is. She's had some success in other things. She was on a show that's on Netflix, which is actually, I think, a British show called Sex Education. And in the Barbie movie that came out a couple years ago, she was one of the Barbies.
Okay.
But I think this is really her first real sort of star vehicle. And she's fantastic in it. I mean, she plays her character is sort of not flighty, but just a little bit hyper, maybe, or she's a very intelligent person, but she's just sort of awkward in her interactions with people. She's sort of one of those people who's intelligent, but she's just sort of off-putting to people who feel like she's maybe like a little condescending, which she's not doing purposely, but it comes across that way. So, that's part of her problem, is that she doesn't really know how to deal with people. And the governor even says to her when he's telling her that she's going to become governor, it's like, this is the only way you could have ever become governor, because no one would have elected you governor. People don't like you. And she's like, oh, I wish you could have said that in a nicer way. It's a funny movie. I really did enjoy it, and I wish more people would go see it. It has been, I'm surprised that it's still available in theaters, because it hasn't really been doing that well. It's been out about 3 weeks, I think, and in that 3 weeks, it's only made $3 million. But it is a lower budget movie. I think its budget was like 35, but still, I don't know that it's going to make that in the theaters, seeing as how it's only made $3 million in its first 3 weeks. But it is sort of like counter-programming to all the big budget, loud spectacles that come out this time of year. It is a movie for adults. It's the sort of movie I think they maybe should make more of, and maybe more people who don't go to the movies anymore because they don't like superhero movies or loud explosion action movies.
I like the superhero movies, but sometimes I'm tired of them at the same time.
Yeah, you want to see something different, and this is sort of like counter-programming.
And that was why the movie that I watched half of was the One Battle After Another, which is a little bit older, and I wanted to watch that because it wasn't, the newest Marvel, Star Wars, IP that everyone knows, an IP that will make money movie. But for me, that one, I got halfway through it, and my Wi-Fi was getting too slow for the movie to keep playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to finish it.
That's another one. I mean, I know you didn't quite totally enjoy it, but I still think that's one of the better movies of the year. And after this one, I very rarely use the word excellent to describe any movie. Even movies I really love, I don't always say that they were excellent. But I kind of feel that both those movies, Ella McKay and that one, were excellent movies. And I feel like these are the sort of movies that should be represented come award season. And that one is getting some award attention. I know it's been nominated for a few things, but Ella McKay, I would think that it would be nominated, and it hasn't been. It wasn't nominated for any of the Golden Globes, which is very surprising to me because the Golden Globes are usually a little more open to nominating things that might not get an Oscar nomination. And I thought for sure Jamie Lee Curtis could get like a supporting nomination because she stole every scene that she was in. She was great in that movie. And I thought, like I said, I thought it was a star-making turn for Emma Mackey. I thought she would get nominated because they have the category of comedic performance separated from dramatic performance. So in a comedy, if you're starring in a comedy, you're not likely to get nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
But with the Golden Globes, there is that chance. And of course,
Maybe they were trying to do that to One Battle After Another, because you said it
got nominated as
for
a comedy. And it has comedic elements, but it's not a comedy.
He falls out into a tree, but even that wasn't that funny.
Yeah, I mean, there was a comic dimension to Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Yeah.
He was sort of hapless, but the movie as a whole was not a comedy. There's a difference between a drama with some comedic moments or comedic scenes or comic relief.
Yeah.
Than there is with a movie that's an actual comedy.
In the world of books, a romantasy versus just a fantasy that has a minor romance plot line.
Yeah.
In a romantasy, the romance is on the same level plot-wise, important-wise, as the fantasy. And if it just has like a thread of it, it's like, and Hermione and Ron are getting together over the course of 7 books. That's not the crux
that's not a romance.
Harry Potter.
So that's sort of a good segue into one of the next movies is why we're talking about like comedies, because I don't know if you remember back in the summer when the reboot or remake of Naked Gun came out.
Yeah.
There was a lot of conversation about how they really don't put a lot of comedies out anymore in the theaters. Like, sometimes there's comedies released on streaming or cable or whatever, but they don't really seem to be making big budget.
Yeah, you don't get Happy Gilmore. When they make a sequel to Happy Gilmore, they put it directly on streaming.
Right. So when Anaconda came out, I wanted to see it because it's like, they really don't put a lot of comedies like these out in theaters anymore. And this is something I want to support because I love comedies. That's probably the type of movie I would want to see the most. And, there's been a move away from that in movies in the theater. So the movie Anaconda, the original one from the 90s, I saw it at the time. I remember going to the theater to see it. It wasn't something that I loved. It was just an okay movie.
Yes.
It's the definition of a B movie.
Yeah, a clone of Jaws 3, but set in the rainforest.
Yeah. It was just sort of a campy thing. I think it had a little bit of like a cult following. There are certain movies that come out that are, not really good movies. They're sort of borderline bad movies. But people love them because they're bad and they're cheesy. And they sort of elevate them to something more than they really are. Which, Anaconda, I would not describe as being a good movie, the original one.
No.
So this one, the premise of this is that it's about a group of middle-aged friends who are wannabe filmmakers. And they get it in their heads that they're going to remake Anaconda themselves as sort of a low-budget independent movie. And it stars Jack Black and Paul Rudd as the 2 main characters. It also includes Thandie Newton, Steve Zahn, and then some other lesser-known people. And they're these people who, when they were kids, loved movies.
Yeah.
And they would try to make their own movies with their video camera, which is the type of thing I kind of did when I was a kid too.
The teenagers remaking Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Exactly, that exact type of thing. So they had dreams of actually making real movies when they grew up, and of course it didn't really happen for any of them. Paul Rudd's character becomes an actor, but he's sort of like a minor league struggling actor. He's never really hit it big. Jack Black's character, even though he dreamt of becoming a film director, he's making wedding videos. And the other characters similarly have not really gone anywhere that they're that happy with in their lives. So they all sort of see this as recapturing the joy that they had as kids making those movies on the cheap. So they actually go to the Amazon in Brazil to film this movie on location. And of course, they eventually run into a real giant anaconda that's stalking them. And that's the whole premise of the movie. So it does sort of send up the original anaconda to some degrees. Every once in a while, there's a little kind-hearted jab at it. But for the most part, the characters are sort of reverent of the original movie. And the movie as a whole kind of seems to be reverent of it, which it's not a movie worth showing that much reverence to. It would have been funnier if they were kind of skewering it a little bit more. And what I was telling you before the show started is the major flaw I found in the movie is that Jack Black has been cast as the straight man. Now, Paul Rudd is a funny guy. I enjoy it. That's one of the reasons I went to go see it. I know he can be really funny. And he's not always cast in comedies anymore. He used to be in a lot more comedies than he really is now. But he can be really funny in a lot of things. But he's nowhere near as funny as Jack Black.
And he can be the straight man really well. Wasn't he in Dinner for Schmucks?
Yes. Yeah, and he played the straight man in that. Yeah. And another movie where he was a straight man, but also a funny straight man, was Role Models, which if you haven't seen Role Models, it's one of my favorite Paul Rudd movies. It's not a great movie, but it's one of the best uses of Paul Rudd in a comedy that I've ever seen. So, but Paul Rudd is sort of playing the dreamer character of the two characters.
The eccentric one.
Not so much the eccentric one. He's just sort of the one who's pushing them to do this. Like, hey, let's make this movie. I've got the rights to Anaconda. Let's go out and do this. And Jack Black is the one who sort of has to be convinced to do it. He's the more pragmatic of the two. The more serious one who's I've got a decent job. I've got a wife and a kid. I can't really go off and do this sort of ridiculous thing. And he of course gets convinced into doing it, otherwise there'd be no movie. But I think if their roles had been reversed and they kind of allowed Jack Black to cut loose, I think it might have made for a better movie. But maybe they were looking to go outside their wheelhouse, because I could totally see Paul Rudd playing Jack Black's character, and maybe he feels that's too close to other characters he's done, like the character in another one where he's a straight man to a comedic character is I Love You Man, and maybe he feels that's too close to that character.
Yeah.
But, sometimes actors have comedic personas for a reason, because that's what people want to see them do. And I know they like to stretch and whatever, but, sometimes you've got to stick to your comedic persona. And so if they had done that, I think it would have been funnier. If it was a little sharper in its takedown of the original, it would have been funnier. Or if it just had leaned a little bit more into the horror aspect, because it's a horror movie essentially that they're spoofing. And even though it does have some scary scenes, it's a long time before the giant snake actually, it shows up in the sort of the prologue scene.
Well, that's Jaws, that's Jurassic Park, that's that genre.
But I think they could have used that part of it a little bit more. It's, it focuses a lot on them making their movie more so than them being stalked by a giant snake. And I think audiences probably would have preferred to see more of the giant snake stalking them. It's not really like a horror movie where there's all these characters that are just there as fodder to be killed. Of course, there are some characters like that. And there's this whole subplot that doesn't really have a big payoff, where they sort of get involved with a character who isn't who she says she is. She's sort of this mysterious character, and you don't know what she's up to, and she's being hunted down by these other people who seem kind of like they're dangerous criminals or something. And there are some surprises in the movie. Eventually, a couple surprises, which did manage to actually surprise me. And a couple times, I did laugh out loud or I jumped or whatever. But I just feel like it could have been kicked up a notch in several areas, and it would have made it a better movie. And I just feel kind of like I was a little bit let down by it. And I could see like if someone had paid to go see it in the theater, and I did pay to see it essentially, but I've got to subscribe. I need to go see a movie. So there's that. The other movie that came out this weekend was Song Sung Blue, which is sort of a drama. I heard someone describe it as a melodrama, which is, I think, also accurate. But it's based on a true story of a couple who they were celebrity, like musical impersonators, and they get together and decide to create this sort of tribute band to Neil Diamond. So it's sort of, on one hand, it's a story of them, creating this band and sort of realizing their dreams of being performers and stars by creating this tribute band for Neil Diamond. And the other part of this story is their personal lives, their romance, bringing them together, and then sort of some of the tragedies that they suffer in their life. So, definitely a drama. It has the highs of them experiencing, success with their band, and then, like I said, there's tragedy that befalls them in the movie. So I thought it was pretty good, well performed. The musical numbers, it's not a musical, but there are a lot of like performances in it of Neil Diamond songs and some other famous musicians' songs. So it's very enjoyable. I mean, even if you're not a Neil Diamond fan, which I wouldn't call myself a Neil Diamond fan, but watching it, you'll be like, yeah, I actually know a lot of these songs, really, and you'll enjoy yourself watching it. So it's pretty good. It didn't do well, and I kind of, with all the promotion that this movie had, I really thought that this would be the #1 movie.
Yeah, but Zootopia 2 is like running away with everything.
Yes, well, Zootopia 2 took the #2 spot, but the movie that took #1, which I kind of forgot about, and I don't know how I could forget about it because the commercials, there's an assault of commercials, but it was the newest Avatar movie, which to me just, escapes me because I have zero desire to ever
No interest at
see
all.
that.
James Cameron said he would have a press conference if 4 didn't get made. I'm like, please.
I don't know who the people are that are going to see these Avatar movies. I mean, I thought the first one was garbage, and nothing could convince me to go see the second, and the third I'm even less interested.
Yeah.
But it was funny when I was going to see Anaconda, which, is that and Song Sung Blue are the 2 movies that came out Christmas Day. And I was thinking to myself, it's funny that these are the movies coming out Christmas Day because usually it's some sort of tentpole movie, some sort of known IP.
Yeah, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
Exactly, Star Wars or something like that. And it's odd that this is what they're putting out Christmas Day. And it completely escaped me that, 5 days before this, the new Avatar movie came out. That's the big tentpole movie. But it wasn't even on my radar because I had zero interest in going to see
I've
that.
seen the first one twice.
Oh.
I saw
I don't know how I could even watch it a second time.
No, I didn't see it twice. I only saw it once on DVD. I didn't even see it in theaters the first time.
I saw it in theaters and people were like, oh, you've got to go see it in 3D. It's so amazing. And it's like, I hate 3D movies because to me, the new version of 3D that they use now
Yeah.
Everything looks murky and gray. And I have trouble seeing a lot of the 3D effects
Yeah.
with my vision. It doesn't really work that well for me because one eye is stronger than the other. So I'm not really getting that 3D effect. So it's like, I prefer not to see 3D movies, and I definitely don't want to pay extra to see a 3D.
And the plot line is Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas.
Yeah, I'd rather watch
Ferngully.
Dances with Wolves. Dances with Wolves is a good movie. I don't need to see it redone as a sci-fi
Yeah.
movie. So very quickly before we run out of time, but Song Sung Blue was good. The reason I got into Avatar is because I thought Song Sung Blue would be the #1 movie, but it was actually down at number 7. There were actually other movies ahead of it, which surprised me because I thought two big stars, Christmas Day release, Neil Diamond fans are going to go see it, but no, it didn't do that well. So I was surprised by that. But Zootopia 2, very quickly, I did enjoy it, and I talked very briefly about it, I think, on the last show. I enjoyed Zootopia 2, but I don't honestly remember the first one that much. I remember liking it, but I feel like I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one, and it's not really like it's a bad movie. It just, I don't know, it feels more like it's a kid's movie. I mean, there are lots of puns that adults will get, and there are references to movies that kids are not going to get the references to. So there is stuff that's thrown in there for the adults. But the animal puns, by like 5 minutes into the movie, they assaulted you so much with all these animal puns, like the names
That
of
it was
movies
hair raising?
Yeah, it's like I was over the animal puns like 5 minutes into the movies. It was way too much. And, occasionally there was a good one that they threw in there. And you're like, oh, yeah, that
The
was...
writers were clever, like a fox.
Oh, God. It's not even like that. It's like, taking the name of a movie and changing it to like an animal pun, that type of thing. And like, they're trying to be like The Simpsons where the store names are punny names, but they're not as good as writers as the writers of The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
But it wasn't a bad movie. I probably would have enjoyed it more watching it at Disney Plus, where I'm not paying to see it in a theater. But I know it's nominated for like the Golden Globe for Best Animated Movie, and I don't. It probably has a good chance because it's doing huge business. It's like made over $1 billion worldwide, like $1.5 billion. So that's it for tonight's show. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what's coming out in the next few weeks, but there are some things coming out in January that I do want to see. Chief among them, 28 years later, The Boneyard.
Yeah,
That
I've heard
looks
good things about that.
Yeah, did you see 28 years later?
No.
You want to see that before going to see this one. But that was a really good movie. I watched that when we did our Halloween show, and I really enjoyed that. I wasn't sure if I would, because it had been so long since I've seen 28 Days Later. But it's not necessary to really be that familiar with 28 Days Later. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. Good night.
Yeah. 20 years ago, I watched all those direct-to-video Disney animated sequels, and you will be hard-pressed to get me to go see an animated Disney sequel now.
You know what I rewatched?